Hey, folks, we're back. I got to just get my bearings straight, Dr. Whaley. We are at, is that a problem if I don't know where I'm at? Let's not start there. But I'm your host, BKP. We're at Circuit World. We got a little weather here activity, a little rain here in North Georgia, so we wanted to play it safe from Sycamore Crossing over there downtown. And we're over here with our friend JR at Circuit World. And I'm here with Dr. Whaley. Ask the Doc, Georgia Cancer Specialist. Thank you, affiliated with Northside Hospital. Dr. Whaley, how are you this morning?
I'm great. First of all, you were disoriented at the time. Excuse me, disoriented to place, oriented to time and situation when you started this morning. So that was one of three elements of Alzheimer's. But other than that, fine. Second comment, you'll recall that we talked before. My brother is a federal judge. He was appointed by Bill Clinton, and the investigation for the Judicial Committee actually is done by FBI agents. You said they have investigators. When they go to the hometown and they don't send people from Washington, D.C. down to Atlanta to investigate Bob's background, the local FBI does the investigation. So interestingly enough, the interviews that they did of his high school teachers and his friends and all of that from high school was done by the FBI. It's not an FBI investigation. So
I got it. Thank you.
All right. But it is done by the FBI.
The FBI investigation is different, and they keep it's an investigation by the FBI.
That's correct. So the FBI agents come and do the interview. And they do the I've been interviewed many times because, as you know, I have friends and patients in the Senate, and many of them that are on the bench.
We've talked about that because there's people that you do have a lot of friends in the Senate, and some of the things that you've been involved in your life, the FBI has actually come to you about people that are going to be in the government.
At least 10 times. If I'm the physician they come to me.
Right.
Now, there's things I can't tell them, but basically they always come to their doctor.
Right.
So anyway, it's the FBI agents that do that. Let's get into the questions because we've got a lot of good stuff today.
I understand. And I'm glad you cleared that up because I know that, and we're going to talk more about that with the panel in a minute. But first, oh, by the way, I can't find my glasses. Now, is that a problem?
You remember?
I'm not getting one of those. I have been recommended one of those little chains around my... It's not happening, okay? But I'm going to try.
Well, you know my wife sometimes wears two pairs of glasses because she's...
Yes.
Anyway, so hey, let's get to work here.
My aunt was recently diagnosed with a form of gynecological cancer. What type of resources are available for my aunt? She is apprehensive about receiving treatment, surgery, biopsies, etc. for her diagnosis. Also, are there any patient navigation services available to provide support for her and my cousin who is a primary caregiver?
All right. Tomato and tomato. Gynecologic malignancy. Gynecologic malignancy.
Okay.
Tomato. Okay. Right. Put up that first one there. That's just a Google screenshot of what I did yesterday looking for support groups. And I did it specifically for Blue Ridge. If you do it for Atlanta, you get a different listing. But you'll notice that the top one there is the Northside Hospital Comprehensive Cancer Institute, and that's because we're the 5th biggest in the country and by far the largest in the state. To answer your question, yes, there are support groups, first of all, for family. There are patient navigators. Now, the navigator is going to be part of the treatment team for the mother. But the support groups for the family are available through any large cancer institute. Northside would have them, Emory would have them, Piedmont would have them, and Wellstar would have them, and that's the 4 big cancer groups in Georgia. There would be available, if you look at second or third down there, you got the American Cancer Society. So there's a big American Cancer Society here in Blue Ridge and in Blairsville and everywhere else. And so there's plenty of places where they can go and get help learning about the disease. Turn the page. Put up that next slide. When you say gynecologic cancer, you're touching a public information thing that we really want to emphasize, and we've done it before, that picture of those three types of malignancies. They were very nonspecific here. We've talked about ovarian cancer before. We talked about endometrial cancer before. And then the third there is cervical cancer. So those three things are all entirely different. You got the picture of the all right. Show the next one. The next picture you got there is risk factors. Now, BKP, I know you don't have your glasses, but that's pretty good size print. If you look at, I know you don't have to read that thing for the people out there, but if you look at the risk factors, the top line, the top three things are all HPV infection, HPV infection, and HPV infection.
Right.
And that's for cervical cancer, vaginal cancer, vulvar cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer. That's all hormonal things. So we're back to the idea of flu shots, measles vaccinations, preschool immunizations, and the HPV vaccine. You get into the rest of those things there, and it's a little bit like the hearings that they had yesterday about none of us are perfect, and the third one on there is, number of relationships that you had and so forth, but that all reflects back to HPV. So at the end of the day, risk factors we've talked about many times. Early detection does not exist for ovarian cancer. Pap smears at some interval can detect HPV and can detect cervical cancer, so the detection's important. And back to the question, the answer is yes. There are plenty of support groups. The navigator's going to come from the doctor. I'll go back to that part about your automobile. If you're driving a Porsche, you don't take it to the Texaco station to get treated. You take it to somebody who specializes in Porsche. And if you've got a gynecologic malignancy, you want to be in the hands of a gynecologic cancer treatment team. That's a medical oncologist, a gynecologic oncologist, or gynecologic oncologist, as you may, tomato, and then a radiation oncologist. Every new patient generally gets discussed in a tumor board with all three modalities, and then they decide what the best thing to do is. Got it?
Got it.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, we want to thank Georgia Cancer Research Center, affiliated with Northside Hospital, for our segment. And this is our, and I'm see how far I can push this computer out. This is our second question this morning, and I already know.
All right, I'll read it for you.
I'm going to go all the way up to this point, and then I'm going to throw it over to you. In my late 70s, my ring finger is and stays slightly bent. I can't straighten it like my other fingers. I have read that it might be what?
Dupuytren's contracture. Dupuytren's
contracture.
Yeah.
Are there any treatments for this, or could it be something other than that?
Show that first picture. I'm going to show it to BKP because we got one of the people. You see that picture there, that finger that's stuck up in the air? All right. You got that? Everybody see that picture? All right. So we're going to look at the second picture, BKP. You got your ring finger there. Turn your hand out like this. Put your fingers back. You see that little line right there?
Mm-hmm.
Rub your hand across the bottom of my hand. There's one right there. See it?
Oh, yeah. I feel that.
Got one there?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All right. That first picture of the Dupuytren's contracture is plantar fasciitis that you get on the bottom of your foot. Big in joggers, big in people who stand on their feet all the time, in the palm of your hand. The risk factors, it's more with alcohol, more with smoking, more with diabetes, but that's more like this. The risk factors up there, Dupuytren was a guy in England who diagnosed this contracture and called it housemaid syndrome, because it generally occurred in the right hand. If you go back to Downton Abbey and the things you've seen on television where they have all that staff, the housemaid cleaned that floor with a wooden brush. You remember that brush? She cleaned that floor like that every day of her life for 30, 40, 50 years. She'd get that in her right hand from the micro trauma. Now, in the mountains up here, If you got a left-handed carpenter, it's going to be in his left hand greater than the right. If you got a right-handed carpenter, it's going to be in his right hand greater than the left. And if you got that thing like that, it's going to be in both hands. So, anyway, this is micro trauma causing inflammation in the tendon in the palm of your hand. My wife will never have the housewife syndrome because she doesn't scrub the floor with her hand. But anyway, so that's the main thing: repetitive micro trauma. There is an association with diabetes, with alcoholism, with tobacco use, and so forth. And that description was very adequate. They gave a really good.
Go right around him. We have somebody just came in, so go right around him.
My ring finger stays bent. That was the first picture, and that ring finger would be one of the more common things to get trauma. If you're a golfer, you know that ring finger is really important on your golf club. So anyway, that's the end of that one. But it's a big,
yeah. But I mean, I understand, because I've seen people where that finger will just turn, or you know, like it says, it sticks out or gets. And I didn't understand that myself, and that makes a lot of sense. I didn't understand that. But
you remember that one we had on the trigger finger?
Right.
That was that's the finger. It looks like that goes boom. You can get it back out. In dupe trains, that finger ain't coming out, and you don't want to. We had a question one time about Peyronie's disease here. There's an association of this condition with contractures in other locations that obviously are not related to repetitive microtrauma. So people who have this dupe trains, males, would be more likely to have Peyronie's disease. But basically, it's a microtrauma thing. It's not really the diabetic thing. It's not really an alcohol thing. It's not really a tobacco thing. If you got 100 of them, 92 of them are going to be repetitive microtrauma.
I want to ask you real quick that we're talking about fingers, and I just go down this road, and I know that I didn't give you a chance to prepare it, but I know you well enough that you'll have a good start on it. Now, I know repetitive motion, when you do something and you do it for years, and I haven't done this in probably 20 years, but I did it for...
Jog, right?
No, not jog. But I used to run a screw gun.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to run a screw gun.
You're using your left hand?
No, I would use this right hand. I'd have a screw gun here, and I could run a screw gun. This is the one area I'll brag about it in my prime, as faster than anybody. But I could take a handful of screws and turn them. This was before they came out with the fancy self-feed.
Yeah.
You know, and I could turn those things and just hit that gun all day like that. And now I don't have the grip. I still have a grip, but I have really no grip to speak of anymore, especially in this hand here.
Well, you're dominantly right-handed.
Yes.
Okay, well, when you were using that hand all the time, as a matter of fact, when you go to a neurologist or an orthopedist, their history form will begin this middle-aged TV executive, dominantly right-handed, complains of, and actually is one of the very first things in a neurological examination is what your dominant hand is. And so the idea that you had facility, you were facile with those things in this hand, you had a good grip, and you had a lot of strength in that hand because you were using it continuously. Yeah. So anyway, at that point in time, you were dominant in terms of work because the screw gun's a lot heavier and it has more power, but you were doing that by the hour. So that's where that grip went. You go back to doing that, or come work out with us someday with a hand grip and this, and you'll have all that strength in that other hand again.
Okay, leave it to me. Why to ask the question?
Every time I get him. All right, go ahead.
What do we? No, it's your floor.
All right. Well, yesterday it hit every newspaper in the country except the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which it hit this morning, and that is that the flu deaths from last year were above 80,000. Average is 30 to 35,000. Now that's a big number. And I have repeatedly, beginning about 4 to 6 weeks ago, hounded about that flu shot. 80,000 people in one flu season, that's almost like the Spanish flu. It got mostly young and mostly elderly. Well, elderly is really, they're over 65. I'm well over 65. And the issue that people repeatedly say, I'm not going to get a flu shot. It wasn't, the last year it didn't match well. The flu shot last year diminished the number of people that got the flu, even though it wasn't matched well. Last year it was a more virulent strain. The match wasn't terribly good, but 80,000 people died, and if they all get the flu shots, and this year it's a better match, it'll go back down. So please go get your flu shot. Anyway, that's the first one.
Weather's changing. It's fall of the year, and it's time to get your flu shot.
Oh, you were asking earlier about the presence or absence of the virus. The answer is yes. Flu season has started, by the way. CDC reported about 3 or 4 days ago that this early strain that's going around now is in this year's flu vaccine. So you may not have the flu, you don't have a temperature of 103, you're not shaking all over, but yeah, there is a virus in the community. So you answer that question again. I got one more.
Go ahead.
All right. Thursday, are you doing it?
We're going to be up there.
You're going to be there. All right. Yeah. So Thursday, is BKP has probably told you, there's going to be a forum at the Fannin County High School Performing Arts Building, right? Correct? At 6 o'clock, focused on the issue of vaping, all right? I'm going to do a little presentation when it starts. That's got nothing to do, that has something to do now. So the subject of that thing is vaping, and I'm getting ready to talk about performance in school and intellect, but there's some links there. Go to that forum. All right. Yesterday came out intelligence in middle school kids. This is 13 years in age and younger. Now, there was a big difference in a group. There were three performance issues that if you have these if you have all three of these, you're at the very top of your high school, your school class. And that was screen time, meaning on your device, of less than 2 hours, sleep of 9 to 11 hours, which is what's recommended for middle schoolers. We're talking about middle schoolers, and exercise of an hour, or playing, not running, but activity, playing in the yard, playing something or other for an hour at least 5 days a week. Now look at these numbers. Only 5% of middle schoolers hit all three of those. 25% got 2 of them. 41% got 1 of them. So that means that 30% of middle schoolers don't hit any of those. Screen time of less than 2 hours. What percentage of middle schoolers? Go in now, computer expert. What percentage of middle schoolers do you think spend less than 2 hours on an electronic device a day? 30. Less than 2 hours. What percentage of them get the right amount of sleep? 45. What percentage of them play? I mean, just play. Play for an hour 5 times a week. Take a guess. Less than 20. So our kids today are spending greater than 2 hours on this machine, and I'm going to talk about this Thursday night. If they're allowed to keep that machine after say 7, 8 o'clock at night, they take it to bed with them, and then they what do you call it, social media? Yeah. Or they text back and forth, and they don't sleep, and they get sleep deprivation, which I've talked about before, and that's the start. We're going to end up in vaping down here on Thursday night. But anyway, so the point is that this study that came out, and that also came out yesterday, tells us that the behavior that we are allowing our adolescents to do with social media, video games, or whatever you call screen time, is interfering with their intellectual development and their ability to learn, and interfering with their performance in school, which obviously is going to affect the rest of their life.
Well, you know what?
And get a flu shot.
You know, let me say this. That is, what is that, Thursday?
Thursday, yeah. Thursday, 6 o'clock.
Right, at the Performing Arts Center. And I want to say there's been some outstanding work with trying to, just come right through here, but there's been some outstanding work with trying to get the word out to the parents and work with them. I mean, I know the District Attorney, B. Allison Sosby, she's done a great presentation down in Gilmer County. The other night she did a great presentation down in Pickens County, and we have both of those on our website. So if you're in Gilmer County, you go to FetcherNews.com, Gilmer County, and you can find it, click on news, the presentation there. The one the other night, you can find that in Pickens County, and we will be up here next week with this panel of experts and people doing a presentation about vaping on Fetcher News. So I am very happy that the community, over the educators, the administration, and the superintendent of schools of all of these counties, very serious. Parents getting involved, district attorney, law enforcement, everybody. So Dr. Whaley's going to be involved in this one Thursday night. So don't miss it. 6 o'clock, right? Fannin County Performing Arts Center. It's going to be some great information about this serious epidemic of vaping.
I'm going to send you my slide set. I'll send it in an email.
Okay, I appreciate that. This has been Ask the Doc with Dr. William Whaley. We want to thank Georgia Cancer Research Center, affiliated with Northside Hospital. Folks, you can get this segment on our YouTube channel. You can get this segment FYN TV Fetcher News. You share it with your friends. And if you ever have a question for Dr. Whaley, you send that to us at info, I-N-F-O, at FetcherNews.com. Put in the subject line, Ask the Doc, and we'll get it over to Dr. Whaley. We're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to have our all-star political panel. It's going to be a little different this morning, so get ready when we come back. Take us a break, Josh.